This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Loki, Season 2, Episode 2, Breaking Brad.
You just make everything worse. For Mobius, for B-15, for your mother. Because that's what you do. You lose. You're a loser.
Loki.
Stop trying to be a hero, man. You're a villain. And you're good at it. Do that. Thank you, Brad. Very much.
I really am touched. You know, you're right. I have done some terrible, awful things. Yeah, maybe that is who I am. You know, he knows. It's the real me. A loser. Always have been. Always will be. And perhaps I've been holding something back, Loki. Perhaps I've just been biding my time. Perhaps I've just been waiting for a moment like this so I can do terrible, awful things to you.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders. Yes, this is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about the Lord and Mistress himself, Loki, coming back for Season 2, and more importantly, the second episode of Season 2, Breaking Brad. No, not Breaking Bad, because we're playing with puns here. Breaking Brad. Mm-hmm. Yes. I am one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm one of the hosts, Derek.
Yes, welcome back, fellow Defenders. I am your third and final host, John.
This is actually a pretty good episode, lads. Like, I was a bit like, I didn't know where they were going with it midway through, but seeing Loki in his more mischievous self,
yes,
if you will, kind of does bring it back to, oh yeah, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Bringing the fun back into fundamental TVA work.
There were definitely good moments in this episode, particularly the second time I watched it. The first time I watched it kind of washed over me because it's a relatively straightforward episode when you break it down. And I think by the end of it, I was kind of going, yeah, I hope there's more in the third episode. But we will obviously get into the spoiler details of the episode as we go into it.
I've kind of flip-flopped on this a bit. I think first time I watched it, I liked it. Second time, I liked it even more. I think this third time that I've watched it now, and
you've gone all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, I kind of just, I wasn't kind of pumped for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe it was more that.
Yeah, let's dive directly into it, because there is a lot of good, there is some bad that we're discussing. I think going through and doing what we do best, which is three nerds sitting around a podcast screen discussing what we liked and disliked, and what we really want to deep dive in this episode is what we do best. So if you're joining us for Loki, don't forget to head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe and find all the links, all the places. You can rate us, review us, do all the things, but you can also email us your feedback, more importantly, to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, where we're able to discuss your thoughts in each and every episode. Or you can also head on over to facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, where we have a spoiler post for each and every episode, and you can leave just your thoughts there, and we'll discuss them at the end of the episode. With all that said and done, Derek, do you want to tell us who gave us what, where, when, and how, and when, with the episode details?
Yes, Loki was created for TV by Michael Waldron. This episode was written by Eric Martin, who's written every episode of Loki this season.
Very good.
Yeah, obviously.
So head writer, I guess,
He's
or lead writer.
Pretty much lead writer for the show. Absolutely. I did hear a sad story last week that when it came to the premiere, he was on Twitter saying, I was so excited about this day, and then he got COVID, so he was stuck indoors doing a premiere on his own. Poor dude.
No.
Poor Eric. This episode is directed by Dan DeLeeuw. Dan is well known for his visual effects work for the MCU. He was the visual effects supervisor for Loki Season 1, along with visual effects for lots of MCU movies, and he was also the second unit director for Eternals, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and Avengers Endgame. Has worked with them for many, many years.
Excellent stuff.
So we're not holding those last few bits up against them.
Avengers Endgame, that's
you're
pretty
not
good.
Holding. Yeah, but the other bits you're not.
I've said it before, on the record. Eternals is a great movie. So
it is.
Quantumania, maybe not so much. But the visual effects in Quantumania, for the most part, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
All that said and done, it was a good one. So he gave us some interesting bits, and so did Eric the writer. John, do you want to tell us exactly what they gave us with your synopsis of this episode?
Sure. Loki, Mobius and Hunter B-15 find and capture Hunter X5 in London, 1977, on the Sacred Timeline, where he lives as a film actor Brad Wolfe. Under interrogation, he admits to abandoning Doc's mission and reveals Sylvie's location. The group travel to Oklahoma and find her working in a McDonald's. Loki tries to remind her of their last encounter in the TVA's future, but she refuses to involve herself with the organization. Meanwhile, OB attempts to repair the Loom to safely accommodate the branching timelines, but discovers he cannot access it without help from the rogue Miss Minutes, who they discover has been working with Renslayer, or the deceased He Who Remains aura. After Wolf gets increasingly agitated sat with Mobius in the McDonald's, he proclaims the group is in mortal danger. Sylvie enchants him, forcing him to reveal Dox's plan to simultaneously destroy the branching timelines. After returning Wolf to custody, Loki, Mobius and Sylvie capture Dox, but she has largely succeeded in her plan, and some of her allies have also escaped. As TVA receptionist Casey tracks the rogue Ravonna Renslayer's tempad on one of the remaining branching timelines, Sylvie, refusing to be involved any further, returns to McDonald's with He Who Remains tempad in her possession. Yes, a lot of McDonald's here. I found myself increasingly salivating through this episode for a double quarter pounder with cheese meal, actually, making it...
I thought you were going to say Tom Hiddleston, but...
Well, between two buns, who knows? Yes, and a chocolate milkshake. And indeed, as soon as I saw the little apple pie, I was like, ooh.
Oh my god, right?
Yeah, burnt mouth.
That was the one that got me. I was like, remember those with they did the extra cinnamon flavor ones at Christmas as well?
They were gorgeous if lethally hot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, many an injury was made by eating that first thing, and you go, But we're not here to talk about McDonald's placed injuries, because there's probably quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Don't they have the famous one that's why coffee all comes with the symbol on it saying hot contents, because the woman burnt herself at the drive-in at McDonald's.
And I think they did on the molten apple pie as well.
Yes, but not in 1982. So that's where Sylvie has chosen to live. It's
still
before that time. It is during molten apple pie time at McDonald's.
Still living on the edge in 1982.
Ooh, flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, exactly.
But a quick note. I've seen many people say this. They went all out for that McDonald's and recreated it to the exact specifications of a 1982 US coast or US based McDonald's.
Yes, it is.
In the country. They went deep on it. Mm-hmm. Very few people will remember the exact, but well done to the set designers anyway. Do you know what? We have the Marvel cash. Disney can bankroll us. McDonald's are in. Let's go into the archives and recreate it bit by so.
I suspect they had the McDonald's cash as well here.
Yes.
Talk about product placement.
I think we are jumping into my big negative from the episode before we even get there.
Okay.
So we'll hold off on that for the moment.
Shall we get into the top 5 variants then?
Yes, let's start off with variant number 1. Back in London, back in the swinging 70s of 1977.
It was called the swinging 70s. That's the swinging 60s, Chris.
Yes, hey, look, the way that Brad is dressed, come on, with that flamboyantness, with the cravat or the kind of ruffles that only Loki is wearing in his suit. I think it could be seen as the swinging 70s. It's very ruffly. It is. Anyway, go to a premiere to find Brad.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, my birth year, so all good.
Yes.
You know?
It's kind of fun, isn't it? That they're in London 1977. You were born in 1977 and your birthday is next week. So it's kind of fun that this has landed at this particular time.
And Star Wars released on my birthday as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I was predestined, as Sylvie would say, to be a nerd. The TVA is obviously working its timey-wimey magic on my sacred timeline.
Absolutely. But I do really like this idea. You know, this stems from the discussion that we saw last week and, of course, from the argument that was going on at the TVA where everybody there was being told you were all plucked from the timeline. So we see here that X5, who we thought was kind of the villainous character, has effectively jumped in and created his own life as a superstar actor. You know, I love that one of the people who's interviewing him as he goes into his premiere, goes to him, "How do you feel about your meteoric success?" You know, it's kind of like, I got here a week ago and now I'm the biggest superstar in the world, but he's probably been there a little while longer. That's how time travel works, I guess. He's probably been there a while setting up his career.
Yeah, I like this. I like the feel of it, certainly with the Zaniac, the movie, and I enjoyed Mobius saying, you know, for the fans, when will we get Zaniac 2 and stuff, as he kind of first approaches him. But I really like this, and actually I think one of the best things for me about this episode was actually Hunter X5. I really enjoyed Raphael Casel here, because the Hunters are such a big part of this, certainly with Hunter B15, and I kind of wondered whether Hunter X5 was just going to be a bit part, but certainly for this episode, I really just enjoyed the range that we got here from Hunter X5. I enjoyed just all the one-on-ones with Loki. I know that's some of our other variant points, but here again, you know, after he's been chased, you know, and caught by Loki, I just really enjoyed seeing Loki's horns back and, what did Mobius call it? The shadow play, you know, as the shadows sort of pin, Hunter X5, and just the whole sort of new life that he's created on this timeline, you know, as Brad Wolfe, as this superstar, movie actor, and, you know, going to the premiere, all that kind of stuff. I really enjoyed sort of the feel of 1977's London here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a complaint we had in season 1 at the first couple of episodes of the show. They basically nerfed Loki's by putting him in the TVA. He's not able to use magic at all. So they had loads of scenes with him, you know, throwing up his hands, trying to do some magic, and he can't do it. Whereas here, he's on the sacred timeline. He's in 1977. He's able to use his magic and uses it with full force. It's definitely one of the best parts of this episode. I really enjoyed him using his duplication ability, where you see him appearing in the middle of a crowd as X5 is running around through that crowd. I thought that was really good. And then them in triplicate and using the shadow Lokis to block them off. That was cool.
Yeah, I like what Brad says, you know, quit with the magic, fight fair. And Loki just says, it's not a fair fight. And again, I think Tom Hiddleston, just his delivery here with Brad Wolfe was just really good. I really enjoyed their sort of back and forth throughout this episode, and this kind of set it up for me with these two.
Yeah, I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki. While I really enjoyed season 1 upon my second viewing of it as a whole, kind of before this season 2 kicked off, I was like, oh, I see some of the issues that now upon light being shined on. I'm like, they did, like you said, they nerfed him. I feel that somewhat in this episode, we're starting to see what I would consider kind of core Loki, good, like the Loki that we all enjoyed, the reason we wanted him.
Yeah.
And they're like from, say, Thor Ragnarok, where he was kind of this larger life character, the reason he got a spin-off, the reason he is like the way it is.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed this bit with Zaniac and Brad Wolfe choosing as Hunter X5 to become this Z-list 1970s, 60s character.
They're saying A-list, Chris. They're saying A-list.
Well, pulled from the annals of kind of comic books, because we had seen Zaniac in the trailer and everyone thought this was going to be a big thing.
Oh, okay.
Everyone, like, from the trailers, all of the YouTube personalities who dissect everything was like, oh my god, they're gonna make this Zaniac who is like possessed by a demon, and he's part of the Manhattan, where he gets induced radiation from the Manhattan Project, so he's gonna be like, no, it's basically they have Hunter X5 assume this name, and it's a film he was in. There you go. Yeah. That's your Easter egg. Let's move on.
I definitely liked where, Mobius was saying, I like it's a horror movie, and he's like, no, it's a dark, intense thriller.
Elevated thriller.
An elevated thriller,
yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
I just thought that was really good. It's like, so it probably is slightly Z-listing, I would say.
I think in terms of the character, yeah, absolutely. Nobody who watched that trailer knew who Zaniac was without Googling Marvel characters, in case there could possibly be one called Zaniac. He appeared in about 4 issues, I think, of Marvel Comics. So I don't know him. I have no idea at all. All I know from my reading is that he has taken multiple forms, and one of those is a character called Brad Wolfe in the comics. So they did connect those two things together in this telling of an actor playing a role in a movie called Zodiac. So that's the only thing I know about it, and that's from my Googling. So, but it's a fun little nod, and definitely, turned a lot of YouTubers onto investigations that will ultimately go nowhere.
Yeah, that's the fun part of it. But I look, for me, I always enjoy when they go to the Sacred Timeline, or when they go to like a non-TVA place, because you do get to see them play with the costumes, the sets, and you kind of get this fun Mobius, Loki back and forth. For me, this was just a good scene leading to where they need to get to, which is like McDonald's.
I will say, though, I think when I watched the episode, I said I can tell that this show is written by somebody that's younger than me, because the group that's surrounding X5 when he comes out are just filled with like every type of music fan or a teenager from the 70s. Like, they have mods and they have punks all standing beside each other. They seem to be having some kind of argy-bargy beforehand. But you don't see that for long. It just seems they all turn on X5 and start giving out to him because he's wearing a suit, effectively. So I thought, is that because the writer has seen pictures of people from the 70s and thinks that they all hung around in gangs together or all went to the same bars? Like, it would be very rare you'd have these groups anywhere together. But it seems like those are all projections from Loki. So maybe it's just Loki that doesn't know.
Yeah.
that these groups wouldn't hang out together.
Asgard.
Yeah. That's how I took it, because you see Brad Wolfe swinging at one of them as he tries to defend himself with a pipe, and it just goes through him and it goes green.
Yeah, so maybe Loki had seen some of the riots from the 70s and just had created that image around them. Maybe that's what it was. One other thing about this scene, a little Easter egg that's in there. There's a poster for a movie featuring a main character from the Eternals. We have a poster of a Kingo movie that you see right at the start. Yeah. So it's because I didn't notice it until the second or third time even that I watched it. It's just right at the start when Loki and Mobius are talking to each other as they arrive in 1977. The minute they start walking, so they have their whole conversation, they start walking, there's a poster on the left-hand wall there featuring Kingo. So I think they did that in Miss Marvel as well, and at least in one of the other shows where they had images of Kingo movies in the background. So there's your one for Loki season 2.
Excellent stuff. Yeah.
Quite cool.
Excellent.
Yeah. Keeping Kingo's movie career alive.
One film at a time. Mm-hmm. Should we move on to variant number 2, gents?
Absolutely. Let us get into... OB and Casey find a problem. In fact, they find a number of problems or issues or potential threats here.
Or we're all going to die. We're all going to die, as OB says.
Yeah. Not dramatic whatsoever.
Not at all. I do love that. Kind of cool to see OB and Casey together here. Casey's got a much bigger role this season than he had in last season. But I like that we have a guy nerding out over OB because... Hey, look, it's Ke Huy Quan. You got to have somebody that speaks for the audience here, meeting Ke Huy Quan and getting all nerding out about him.
That's it, but I did kind of like that because you had B-15, basically these containment doors are locked, there's a need to override them, like, critically, otherwise there'll be an overloaded system, and Casey's trying to get, an autograph for OB, the author of the TVA Orange Technical Manual, and B-15's just like, hey guys, can we focus please? But I like that because you have that from OB when the tempad that they've taken from, or the modified tempad that Loki and Mobius have brought back from London, that Brad was using, they're going to try and get that seen to by Obi, and he's like, look guys, the Loom's in bad shape, I'm trying to sort out all these new branches to prevent it from this temporal meltdown, and it's like, is the tempad a higher priority than that? It's like, okay, we'll try and fix it, and you've kind of got Loki all fingers and thumbs trying to sort of look into Wolfe's sort of modified tempad using the manual. So I thought that was a good bit of fun as well.
Yeah.
I look, for me, OB, any scene with OB is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed putting, as you said, Casey has he was somewhat of a standout in season 1, or a fan favorite, not standout, but a fan favorite. So seeing him here, kind of having the role expanded and seeing him work alongside his mentor, or not his mentor, but his
hero.
His hero, yeah, it's a better way of putting it.
Like, remember, he's telling them that he's practically memorized the TVA manual, and we saw Mobius trying to use it. Mobius is in a pretty high position in the TVA, and Mobius is trying to just look through it and going, I don't even know if this is the right way up or not. Have I skipped some pages here? How the hell do I use this thing? Casey, on the other hand, is very knowledgeable about this. Much more technical guy, obviously, than Mobius.
Just slightly. But look, this is fun. That they get the Loom. They see the problem being is that he remains as the only one, and you kind of set you on your path. Like they now need, like they know what their MacGuffin is. They know what they need to do in order to save the universe.
Kind of. What they realize is that He Who Remains is the only person that can access it. They need his temporal aura to be able to access this, and He Who Remains is dead because Sylvie killed him. So they're kind of going, okay, not sure if we have a plan B here. Maybe we need Miss Minutes here, and Miss Minutes has been gone for the entire 2 episodes.
There is another in that Miss Minutes can deactivate it. So you hear Obi saying this, but it then links to Casey's. He's kind of been trying to sort of locate Renslayer and all that, and from one of the tempads, he realizes that Renslayer's one of her last communications was to Miss Minutes, and that Miss Minutes has been helping Renslayer, and that she's been working with He Who Remains ultimately. So again, they probably aren't entirely sure what that means, but they know that He Who Remains is dead, and you've got this AWOL, Miss Minutes, and Renslayer still in the ether, and it's unlikely that, Obi's backup, which will be to get Miss Minutes to deactivate everything, is going to happen. So, I mean, at the moment, I guess you've got this pressure cooker of a time loom waiting to sort of just blow up with all the branching timelines.
Absolutely. Do you think there was a little hidden joke in there that it's about getting rogue AI back to work is the only way they can solve the problem? To save all the humans, getting rogue AI back to work. I know this was all written and done before the writer's strike, but I thought that was quite prophetic, given what was in the arguments with AI going rogue.
It certainly lends itself quite nicely to the current situation, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I really want that to be true. It's kind of like there's a video game called Death Stranding, written by Hideo Kojima, which is literally about a virus, and everyone's living in shelters, and only certain delivery people kind of are able to kind of go across the United States, and it came out just before COVID. And everyone was like, what the hell? Okay, I say just before, but 6 months before. But it was still like, yeah, this is too close for comfort. But yeah, I'd love to say that the writers are prophetic, but I just think they read the tea leaves too well.
Well, absolutely. Like AI obviously has been very central to science fiction for quite a long time, going back to things like Terminator, where things became sentient, Skynet became sentient and destroyed the planet.
Don't talk about Skynet. So, yeah. Don't talk about Skynet because he can hear.
They did change the name for the sequels, didn't they? It wasn't Skynet in the sequels.
Yes, it was Google. I mean,
it was something else. Yes. Anyway, let's get out of that and move on to our variant number 3. This, I think, is probably another of the best moments in the episode. Breaking Brad with the ever decreasing cage, as Loki seems to take back his mischievous side. But this is all after the initial confrontation between B-15, Mobius, Loki, trying to get the information out of Brad. And it seems like Brad's very good at pushing every single person's buttons. Starts with B-15 saying to her, you informed us all that we had a place in the timeline. I've gone out and taken my place in the timeline. So what exactly are you pissed off about? What exactly have you got a problem with here? I've done exactly what you told me to do. Then Loki jumps in saying, but people's lives are at stake. And he just laughs in Loki's face going, you've killed so many people, effectively. You put everybody's life in danger multiple times. Yeah. What's your problem here? Including your mother. And then you see a little look from Loki there, that looks like he's really getting to him, doesn't it?
Yeah, I just thought this whole sequence of breaking Brad was good because it was like, I mean, round 1, it's just that swagger of Brad Wolfe, totally unfazed with the 3 of them in his cell. Ultimately, he thinks he's getting at Loki, but it becomes Mobius that he is getting under the skin of. And it is nicely tense because you think something's going to sort of come from Loki when in fact it's the jibes that are coming from Brad that Mobius reacts to, and I kind of liked that. And I like the kind of aftermath of it where Mobius is going, no, I didn't lose my cool. It was tactical. It's like, I was following you. And Loki's just like, you were clearly in front of me. I was following you. Followed by the key lime conversations, between the two where he's just, it's like, yeah, that wasn't tactical. I lost my cool, but you get that little insight as to why, Mobius a little bit conflicted here. The TVA is my only life, but it's not if I see my life on the timeline being bad. It's if it's better than what it is now. That's when I'm not going to be able to deal with it. So it's that kind of, I get Mobius saying, this is the life I've only known, so I'm happy with it. But if I peer through the looking glass and see a better life, I'll know what's been taken away from me. I can handle a worse life because I've enjoyed this life. So I kind of liked how that element of Mobius here, kind of got pulled out from these scenes as well. And Mobius is a good sidekick to Loki, and this episode did remind me of that. All this pitter patter sort of on the sidelines, whether it was in London or here in the interrogation room. I really enjoyed it. And then moving into round 2 with the ever decreasing cage. I liked it. Although I was there going, he's locked it from the inside of the cell. What? But obviously it was just an act. But didn't Brad understand that, like, they have, the
it's
guards.
Yeah. It's a cell. You can't lock it from inside or else there would be no point in having it as a cell. Yes.
Yeah. I thought that was a little weird. The key lime was very green as well. Maybe it is that green in real life, but it looked really, really green. And
I want to try that color. That looks neon.
It does, doesn't it?
I was like, I will try you. I feel that there's probably very little lime in you, and mostly like colorant B5 too.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, do you eat that and come out like Monty Burns in The Simpsons, where on the X-Files episode where he's floating around a luminescent green in the forest?
No, you come out as Zaniac.
Well, although weirdly, I don't know what it was, but that key lime conversation scene, I really enjoyed it, but I couldn't help but notice the two of them avoiding eating the key lime. It was like, I think Loki got a lot of cream there. I think he was mainly eating cream rather than the actual pie.
They do say acting with food is one of the most difficult things to do, because especially if you're doing a scene with a lot of dialogue, you probably have to film that over hours. So the chances of you being able to get the take right and eating the right amount of the key lime pie, you'd probably have to run through the scene in total 20 times and then try and match up the key lime pie. You either don't have it on screen or you don't eat it.
I think that's why I was probably watching it, because I'm kind of fascinated food scenes in shows.
I thought you just meant by key lime pie in general.
Well, I kind of am after seeing how green it was.
To me,
I know.
To me, that's an aesthetic choice. It's something like that's what you'd see in 1950s movies and TV shows. You'd see that kind of thing, or 1960s kind of TV shows and movies. And the style of the TVA, it is all about style. They've got a great designer working in the TVA stuff, so it feels exactly what you would get in that kind of Jetsons world of that automat delivering the food. That's the kind of stuff you'd see. And I wonder if you put that side by side with Agent Carter, which was based in that kind of era. I wonder, would you see some similarities between how that's all set out the automat? Because I know she worked in one, didn't she? Or she went to one of her friends worked in one. That's what it was. Yeah, but it is a really interesting scene. I wonder, I guess maybe X5 did know that Loki locked the door, but he still had to call for Mobius because Loki wasn't going to help him.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it. Maybe he was trying to go, look, I know you can open the door from the outside. Open the door.
No, absolutely. But I love it with round two.
Mobius is a great actor, you see.
Yeah, but also with round two, I think just that Loki is kind of repeating back to Brad everything he said from round one to try and get under Loki's skin, and I kind of liked how that played out, because especially whereas I'm not trying to be a hero, because I've done a lot of very bad stuff, so I really enjoyed that aspect to it. Although it was kind of nice symmetry, I guess, of these two rounds of interrogation,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Round one and/or the key lime pie scene was very much Owen Wilson. Like, Mobius was Owen Wilson. It was, oh, wow. Just, that's all. For whatever reason, I liked Mobius as a character.
Yeah.
It's just for here, it was Wedding Crashers. It was just
really
it was just Owen Wilson for me, and I was like,
the key lime pie scene where he's talking about like possibly everything being worse for him if he goes back and finds something good in his life is there rather than the TVA. That felt like Mobius. That didn't feel like Owen Wilson. I don't think he's ever had a serious role like this before. Before that scene, I know he's had some serious movies. Don't get me wrong.
Yes. What was the one with the dog? There was one with the dog. But anyway, it just felt very Owen Wilson. It kind of almost got, for me, for whatever reason, just kind of, I don't know, I zeroed out on Mobius being Mobius, and it was just very Owen Wilson.
Okay.
That being said, this scene, the act two, as you call it, with the kind of interrogation, with actual Tom Hiddleston, Loki being, oh yeah, no, I'm a bad guy. That, I really enjoyed that, because that really was like, oh yeah, are they going to do this?
Yeah.
Are they actually going to make Loki kind of Breaking Bad? Is he going to go a bit kind of off the reservation? Yeah. Because then you get this potential, what Loki was supposed to be, when what is in comics, an anti-hero. Mm-hmm. He's not Punisher level, but like, he's a bad guy who will do a bad thing for the greater good.
And with the magic as well earlier on, and this kind of mischievous sort of Machiavellian type style as well. It felt like, really good lean into Loki, up from the comics, as you say, but even from the earlier movies. So I really enjoyed these, for sure.
I have to say, it's also really well acted because obviously there's no box there. It doesn't exist. So just seeing the two of them react to the chair being crushed in the middle of the room, I thought was a great opener, great starter for 10 from Loki to go, that could be you inside this, basically. Oops, I've made a mistake. And then seeing Loki start to shrink that box around Brad when he's inside it, I thought was really good.
It was really good. Yeah, really tense. And that's the thing. I think Raphael Castle here, who plays Brad Wolfe, Hunter X5, I just think his bounce between himself and Tom Hiddleston, I just thought they were really good. I think it really worked. There was some sort of chemistry that works so well in these scenes between these two, and I really, really it was the big thing I took from this episode was that, and I think with Mobius there as well. But certainly those two, I really enjoyed them sort of bouncing off one another in these scenes. As we've said a few times. Do you think
they took like mime mastery courses? You're in a glass box, and the box is getting smaller.
Well, it was really well done. That, and I mean, that must be pretty difficult as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, really good. And this is what leads them to getting the information for the most part that they need. He tells them that Sylvie has decided to take up residence on a completely different branched timeline. He was sent there to go and collect her. He did see her there and left her behind and then went off and took his place in 1977. So are we to read from that Sylvie's the one that convinced him to just go off and pick up his own life, since she has got her own life? Is there something that's not on screen here? Is there something that's happened between the two of them that she said it, or did he just see her life and go, oh, I could do that as well?
I kind of took it more like that, to be honest. Yeah,
I took the secondary, the latter. Because again, Sylvie she up and left 6, which is perfect. It moves us on to variant number 4, because Sylvie is living her best life, La Vida Loca, in 1980s McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's great. Who wouldn't?
Well, me. 100% me, Chris. This is really bad. And it was worse every time I watched the episode. I noticed even more things. It's like as if McDonald's came in and read over the script. You remember those whole stories in the past about the US Army coming in and helping out when firearms needed to be used? So people started to say that they were ways of recruiting people to join the army, right? So when you had an action movie, it was the US Army that was actually writing those scenes so that they could recruit people into the army. That's what this felt like. This felt like McDonald's wrote the script so they could recruit people, not only to go out and eat current McDonald's food, but to think of a simpler time when they weren't bound by all the restrictions that have been put on them since the 90s. Go back to 1982 when we used to burn your mouth on an apple pie, but you say it's the greatest apple pie you've ever tasted. It was really bad. Not only have we got the God of Mischief, remember, Sylvie is a variant of Loki, right? She's not just her own character. She is a goddess of mischief. Yet she's a model employee for McDonald's in 1982, already filling up the straws before you even have to ask her, to the 20-year-old manager who's 20 years her junior. They are trying to recreate a perfect McDonald's situation and say how wonderful it would be to live here. And I want to stress that again. Sylvie seems to live in McDonald's. She's got a pickup truck parked outside, and when she returns there, she sits on the front of the pickup truck at McDonald's waiting for her next shift to start the next day. Oh, wow, how did sponsorship from McDonald's get this much in these episodes? Was the budget cut so much from Loki season 1 to season 2 that they had to have pumped in money from McDonald's to get this season made? Is that what happened?
I guess it's the making of that we're just going to have to watch here.
They'll completely ignore it. They'll completely ignore it. They'll pretend wasn't it nice to have this partnership like we used to have in the old days with superhero movies, getting superhero toys in your McDonald's. Well, but this is so much of an ad for McDonald's.
Well, I did feel like Simpsons did it again, like you were saying about the army being involved with, the Simpsons and joined the Navy and the boy band. And I was like, but this is...
Come work for McDonald's. Have a boss who's 20 years younger than you, telling you what to do, who gets his mom to drive him home from work, because that's the perfect life and that's the place you should want to live.
It was a little weird, I have to say.
I took it as ultimate satire. Like, really on the nose. Like, you would either think this is amazing or you understand that they are ripping the living hell jokes out of this. Because I did take it as very much a satirical, the best place in the world is a McDonald's. Is that no way in any universe or any timeline the best place in the world to be? I took it as like literally very tongue in cheek, but I understand.
I don't know how you would distinguish the two of those things against each other, Chris, because you walk into your local McDonald's right now and it is sponsored by Loki. They have set up an interior of McDonald's in some places in the US to look like it did in the 80s to tie in with Loki, with the TV show. You can walk in and get special meals that look like the meals from Loki. That's been going on for more than a month now before the show launched. So they've had sign off on everything that's gone into the show, it seems like. So they are creating the greatest place on earth. And if you have a 6-year-old watching the Loki TV show, it's an MCU show made for all audiences, they're going to go, I want to go and get one of those apple pies and burn my mouth. In the local McDonald's.
I will do that with my son. I will do that, and it's going to be a teachable moment. It's kind of like it's like that point where you like back in the yesteryear, you would take your son out hunting and let them go into the wild, and they would come back with a hare.
A long time ago.
Yes, exactly. Yesteryear, long time ago. And they would come back with a hare or nothing, and if they came back with nothing, they would have no food. But now I will let my son loose and go to McDonald's, and if he comes back with a Big Mac or an apple pie, I will say, which will you eat? And he will eat the apple pie and burn the living hell out of his mouth. And I'll be that is a teachable moment. You should have gone for the Big Mac, which is 4,000 calories, but you will be hungry again in 5 minutes.
I think the teachable moment there is probably about litigation against a company that would sell that to a child. But anyway, I think more of my problem is this scene could take place absolutely anywhere. She could be working in a generic bar, serving beers behind the bar, some whiskeys, have exactly the same conversation outside, but just there's so much stress on the fact that you have to have the golden arch in the background of all scenes to make sure that this is definitely a McDonald's, that she has her 5-minute break, remember, because that's what good workers get when they work for McDonald's. They only get 5-minute break. They can only have personal conversations between those times, just training up the next generation of McDonald's workers here with our 10-minute spot in this Loki episode. Yeah. It was really, I honestly, I don't go very negative very often, but this was the most negative I can be, because we already talked about in episode 1 how much McDonald's placement was in there, and now there's more.
I do think it's, to what extent was it a creative choice by the writers to have McDonald's in there, and to what extent was we need to partner, so it became a corporate thing of we need to partner, and so we're going to set all this scene in McDonald's, and it's like, okay. And I mean, actually, I think you were saying how Mobius was more Owen Wilson in the scene with the key lime pie. I thought it was in the McDonald's with Brad, where it's like, I thought we could sit down here and have a lovely dinner, kind of thing. Again.
No, can I just read out the line that Mobius actually says?
Well, that's true.
I thought this was going to be a trap, but here we are for a lovely dinner. Underline lovely dinner from McDonald's. Can you make sure that Owen Wilson says that? Because we can't get him for an advert, but we can get him to say it in the show to support McDonald's again.
So it is kind of
corporate sponsorship gone crazy.
Yeah. So it was kind of that felt a little out of place. I think. Yeah, I mean, look, I just don't know. I mean, it's just...
I got you a milkshake, John. Will that not cheer you up?
For me, it's just, I'm trying to reconcile why a McDonald's restaurant is just the center of this. Because ultimately, unless it is just pure and utter satire that I'm just not getting from it. But
look, it's either satire or corporate sponsorship.
Yeah.
It is one or the other.
I say
the writers would like to say it's satire. Probably the truth is it's corporate sponsorship. The actual truth is somewhere in between.
Yeah, exactly.
They said corporate went, you need to put a McDonald's in here. Writers went, well, we're going to make fun of them. And it got rewrote about 4 times to what it is now. So it's very much in the middle piece. What I disliked on this Sylvie thing is not the McDonald's. It's not any of that. It's literally just, Derek, you said, like, this could have taken place anywhere. Mm-hmm. The other point is, this could have not, like, this doesn't need to take place. Like, okay. the actual Sylvie conversation where she's angry at Loki, like, she kicked him. She pushed him out. Mm-hmm. And then she's annoyed that he's back working at the TVA. Well, yeah, because, like, you got rid of him and he, like, destroyed the universe and now he's turning up. Like, I think the problem with this, that really kind of, the issue is that, like, he's puppy long, kind of puppy eyes at her, and she's just so standoffish and aggressive. So kind of, it just felt, this probably would have been better somewhere else if it was a more quiet, not in your face situation where it was in a room and they are able to have a sit down and they could have had a proper conversation. It just felt so, I don't know, something about this just was like, no, that's a terrible way to reintroduce Sylvie. Okay. Like, it just didn't feel like it meshed for me. And I think that's where I was like, something's up with her character. She's off. And then it kind of rolls quickly into the next scene. Because you're just basically on a 5-minute break. Oh, the world's going to end. Okay, let's go. Yeah. Like, it just felt very...
I felt you could have spent more time with Loki and Sylvie, because I did like their initial awkward interaction. And weirdly, of all of it here, I enjoyed that. I actually enjoyed some of the music in this scene that kind of gave that sense of awkwardness between the two. But I do agree with you. I think there was so much kind of extraneous stuff around having to talk about 10-minute break. I'm on my 10-minute break, or
cut to milkshake. Yeah, cut back.
Yeah, and you're having a lovely meal. I thought we were going to sit here and have a lovely meal, rather than having Loki and Sylvie having that chat, and in a sense, you know, seeing Brad getting more agitated in their presence because he knows the plan of Doc's that's happening, you know? Because interestingly, one of those multitude of branches that doesn't get destroyed is the one with the McDonald's in it. So that was kind of interesting.
Maybe it is the safest place in the entire universe to live.
It's the safest and
corporate sponsorship universe.
Yeah, exactly.
The McDonald's timeline, where the whole timeline is just a McDonald's. But no, let's kind of roll it back. Let's roll it back up a little bit just to make sure we're really clear on what the story is here from Sylvie. Sylvie pushed Loki out of. He remains the place at the end of time. She kicked him out and made her choice, and her choice was give everybody choice again, because He Who Remains had sewn up the timeline so that everything had to happen the way he predicted it happening. She created choice for everybody, and then her choice was to go and live in a branch timeline. That was her choice. Yeah. She made that choice, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, Loki walks in and goes, I found another problem in the TVA. You need to come back with me and sort it out. And she's going, absolutely not. I'm not getting involved. I hung up my horns. And he's going, but I saw the future and I saw that you were there. So therefore you have to be involved in this. And she's going, absolutely not. I made my choice. You make your choice. F off.
And that sounds like a predestined future,
exactly,
which is what she was going
Which is what she got rid of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I understand the argument. I understand why she doesn't want to get back involved again, because that was her choice, was to get out of it and not be involved anymore. She had been on this path since she got kidnapped as a child, effectively, for being a female Loki by the TVA, right? That was her whole story throughout season 1. So she has chosen to step off that path, go onto a branch timeline, and live out her life simply. And then Loki walks back into her life and goes, hang on a second, I need to drag you back in again. Yeah. So I think the scene makes sense. And I think her anger and aggression with him makes sense. But just didn't need to happen in McDonald's car park.
And towards the TVA as well.
100%. Yeah, they're the ones that stole her from her life when she was a kid.
Okay. You saying that to me, you reminding me of those parts, makes me go, okay, now I understand. So then, in truth, what that scene is actually missing is that narrative Basil exposition reminder. Honestly, because it's just her saying, they kidnapped the TVA, you're working with them, they kidnapped me as a kid, and I've been on the run from them forever because of them. So her just saying that would have brought it back.
Yeah, but they were having to write McDonald's corporate speech into it of, I can only have my 10-minute lunch break now before I have to get back and fill up the straw holders and the napkin holders and then clear everything up. You know, that was the waffle. That was the waffle in these scenes.
Yeah.
And I think so I think, look, is there problems with the scene? Yes. Be it for whatever reason you feel that this scene just doesn't gel 100%. There's some funny moments, some funny words, but
it's a real shame because like Sylvie is such a, or should be another central variant to the Loki that we know. And she
was great in season 1.
Exactly.
She was standout. The actress Sophia Di Martino, for me was one of the best parts. She, outside of Tom Hiddleston, I remember saying, I hadn't seen much of her before, and her coming in, and I was like, breath of fresh air. I love this.
Absolutely. And she will be again. We can't, say there's not going to be more of Sylvie this season. This is only the second episode. She is the other major character in the season. We've got 4 or 5 major characters in Loki. It's not just the Tom Hiddleston show that we thought season 1 was going to be. Yes, we have 5 or 6 major characters, and Sylvie's definitely one of them. We know she's coming back. He's already seen the future and seen her, right? So we know Sylvie's coming back. But this way of introducing her, I think that scene worked well. I get it. Maybe just the previously on the beginning might have had her a little bit of her speech from Loki season 1 where she explained what happened to her. That might have helped as well. But she is brought along on the adventure effectively because Mobius does convince X5 to tell the story. What actually is happening? They are blowing up timelines. Dox has her plan that is to blow up every timeline, which will include Sylvie's and will kill everybody there and this quiet life that she's found for herself.
And to preserve the sacred timeline, to get it back to and regain this order. Which I think brings us on to our variant number 5, Dox's plan.
I enjoyed this part.
Yeah, Dox's plan is effectively to go with the plan of He Who Remains. Create a brand new sacred timeline from this point onwards and destroy all of the branches that have been created when Sylvie killed them. We have this really interesting one where everybody sat down together and went, okay, we can't do that. He remains. This is who he is. He's evil. And Dox just went, no, don't care. I've lived my life in the TVA. I have pruned branches off the timeline to create a sacred timeline for as long as I can remember, which could be thousands of years, remember, and just goes, I'm just going to go along with that plan. And I'm going to take everybody else with me and destroy branch after branch after branch, killing billions of people. I don't know whether this comes across that well in the show. I know that all of our major cast are together watching the screen where all the timelines and the branches are getting erased, and they're reacting going, that's billions of lives. Wunmi Masaku as Hunter B-15 is going, that's billions of people there. That's everybody being lost. I don't know whether that comes across as such a big thing when you're seeing a dot matrix TV with lines being erased from there. She's selling it quite well, but I don't know whether the stakes are coming across as big as they are.
I mean, I think it's because you get the flashbacks to them leaving and going on this operation, but you're kind of wondering, how are the other members in the war room and, and Hunter B-15 and even the guy who is kind of arresting people at the end, how are they not reacting to it? How has she been able to mobilize all this stuff to do it? It almost feels like yes, it's been done in secret. I get it, but it doesn't seem to have been kept hugely secret, and then it's just happening.
I know what you mean. It's like as if you'd need something about how are they hiding it from everybody else, because it seemed like quite out in the open that they had all these doors and people traveling in and out of them and dropping off the wiping bombs.
And it's even just with Brad, the one little thing I would have liked some explanation, and maybe we'll get in the next episode, but, why hasn't he gone along with this, ultimately? Yeah. Because he did seem like a Doc's loyalist in that war room in episode 1.
Although, previously on, the line they took from Brad from that scene was, "This changes everything," and the line they took from Doc's was, "This changes nothing." So while that wasn't exactly what happened in the scene, they're taking that line from him is his whole reason for going, and his whole motivation to go to 1977. Yeah.
It's just that war room, you kind of get the sense that he is a Doc's loyalist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah.
Like, and then he changed his mind. Yeah. So he was, and then changed his mind. Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you guys. There's a lot on these first 2 episodes, because I know I wasn't here for the first episode with you guys, but even it feels like there was some editing done post final edit, some choices made, if that makes sense. I feel that there's probably has been some scenes filmed, which is this kind of more exposition,
maybe,
and for whatever reason they just kind of were dropped. For whatever, because there's a lot of doors opening and closing, and there does feel like there should be, like you say, that dot matrix TV and the death of billions and billions of people. It's almost like I'm going to use another Disney property. There was a great disturbance in the force felt, and like 1 billion people cried out at once, kind of thing. There should have been more gravitas. Now, we get it with Hunter B-15. She does well up.
Yeah.
But people around her are kind of not. And the one thing before we get to the actual scenes with Loki and Sylvie and the rest is we've seen the outside of the TVA. The city upon city, where we've seen cars flying about and things like that. But it still feels like there's just a couple of 100 people. But when you see the outside of the TVA, like when, say, Loki was running through in episode 1, there's cars flying, there's taxis, there's a city worth, there's a couple of 100,000 million people there working in the TVA. And it just still feels sometimes like it's the mix of, you're still trying to show that this is a huge, massive operation, but then also it's so small that it's kind of like Warehouse 13, where there's only a couple of 100 people working on it, and it's still kind of a small thing because you have everyone there at on the level. It just sometimes there's a disconnect in terms of the size of the consequence and the size of the operation to what we actually see.
Yeah,
more just because of the scoping and scale. It's a TV show.
It's probably TV budget, absolutely.
Yes.
And I think just by having those scenes in the first episode, it establishes a size that we're never going to see. We're never going to see millions of people react to something here. And as I say, time works differently here. We're not going to see that kind of reaction as if it's a city with other things going on other than people working as the TVA. Do we not even hear from Obi in episode 1 that he's never slept and he's been there hundreds of years? Same with Mobius, that they just do their jobs effectively. Yeah. So this break in the TVA that's happened since the death of He Who Remains is kept small. But again, I don't really know why the operation by Docs is so secret. I feel like there should have been some kind of way of describing how Docs was hiding the operation where everybody's jumping in and out of timelines from everybody else. Something.
Yeah, because it's like you say about the disturbance in the Force, Chris, because, in this episode, we've had Obi, freaking out about the override of the system because of all these new branches, and you have effectively those branches being cut. So does that mean that the temporal loom now is kind of being saved. You know, so I think the other side of it is, you know, we might get that in the next episode, and I hope so, because it feels to me like they're introducing certain things which I don't fully recall from the first season around, like with this temporal loom. To me, it was all about branches and so on and so forth. And now we've got this loom, got a containment field, and it can override, and it's where time is created. So, you know, what are the actions that Docs is doing here? How's that going to affect the problem that Obi has got? And maybe it will sort it all out and so on, but I hope in the next episode, you know, we see the consequences of this pruning on a massive scale, and how this is affecting Obi, because we don't get that here. And
be like, oh, I thought you were terrorists taking out all the branches and going against the plan that we'd all come up with. Oh, actually, you've sorted out the problem of the loom exploding and killing everybody at the start of the next episode. It absolutely could be that. It
feels like there's a coup happening, but they haven't called it that. Do you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like it's between Docs and the other people in the war room. You know?
Yes.
So, but it's just not really been called out as sort of maybe just more simply, I think.
Yeah. And I suppose if Docs is the one that's continuing on with the He Who Remains version of the TVA, the people who are in the coup are Loki and Mobius.
Yeah.
And B-15, etc. Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah. Again, hopefully that comes out in the next episode, but there is a cool action sequence here, though.
Yes. So for me, this was mwah. Like, again, you do forget how cool Loki is in a battle, like with the knives and the magic, and then seeing Sylvie with her massive sword and her magic.
Yeah.
And just the goddess and god of mischief and the tricksters doing what they do best. And again, seeing Loki in his suit and tie and just kind of, it was just, as quick as it was really good to see.
Yeah, it was
just
cool.
A really nice. They had a couple of slow-mo shots, which I'm always a fan of ever since The Matrix. So just for me, this was a nice payoff towards the ends of the episode, really.
Yeah, definitely.
I like the little touch back to season 1 of the two of them holding hands together and it creating this blast that knocks out all of Docs' people. So I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah, and all the kit and stuff. Yeah, no, I like this. And it was kind of uncompromising as well, you know, that they were pruning some of Docs' men here as well, as much as the equipment. It felt really good. And I just say, small but perfectly formed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Really good. I like the little joke back to season 1 as well, where that was a big problem. What happens if the two of them touch each other? And this time, Sylvie just looks at Loki and goes, don't overthink it, and just grabs his hand. And then that's where the explosion comes. So I thought that was quite a funny little gag, considering how central that thought was in season 1. What happens if they meet each other? Yeah. Good stuff. But even though Docs' plan succeeds, they do capture her and capture most of her men. We do hear some of them did escape into the timeline. Some of them did escape through those doors. I thought it was quite interesting that they were pruning on this massive scale, this pruning bomb that they were using across the branching timelines. That was effectively, when it's let off inside a branch, it deletes the branch. What we've seen in season 1 was you take the person out of the branch timeline that's caused it, you prune them, and then the branch goes back into the sacred timeline. But there seems to be this new weapon that they're using, which is this bomb that's just dropped and cuts the timeline. So that was quite interesting.
I suppose it's like an assassination to change the course of a country versus just taking out the country.
Yeah. And this takes out an entire timeline and everything in that newly created galaxy, effectively, that's there. So that's quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like you said, it's just showing the scale of I suppose, look, when you go from what it was in season 1, which was kind of everything needs to be ramped up, the danger, the action, the intrigue, the drama, and the weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah. I think that's kind of it for the final point. Just the only other thing we didn't mention is just about Renslayer, that they have found a hit on Renslayer's tempad. So they have found her on the timeline, which was what Casey was tasked with. I do like that scene. It was a bit of a good comedy scene with him and Hunter B-15, where she walks in and goes, "Have you found Renslayer yet?" And he goes, "Shh, I haven't found her at all yet. She goes, why are you whispering? It's like, it's a secret. He goes, why would it be a secret? She tried to kill everybody, including me, put me into prison. This is not a secret. She's on the run from the TVA. Oh, yeah, I suppose so. Thought that was a good gag.
I like Casey.
I like Casey a lot. But they have found her, so that's well, I guess where they're going next episode is to go and find Renslayer.
And Sylvie has gone back to the sacred McDonald's timeline.
To sit on the hood of her truck and wait for her shift to begin the next day.
Yes, and she becomes she who burns the mouth of young'uns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of who remains. I think that's it, gents. Mm-hmm. So, with all that said and done, shall we discuss our final thoughts of this episode? So, question is, Derek, do you defend Loki Season 2, Episode 2, Breaking Brad?
In the context of the series, that this is only 2 episodes into the series, it's okay. I guess you have to watch it to get to the next episode. But this would be probably the lowest of the Loki episodes that I've seen. Didn't enjoy this one very much. Some great moments in there, don't get me wrong, especially seeing Loki using magic when he's outside the TVA. That's something I've wanted to see more often in the show. But overall, I've mentioned it way too much. The whole scenes in McDonald's really detracted from the show for me. A couple of other things that didn't really sit great with me, but overall, I'd say if you stack up the 8 episodes so far, this was the one that I disliked most so far, and I hope the rest of the season can correct it. I'm sure it can. There's 4 more episodes to go. I'm sure there isn't going to be an episode as bad as this one in the rest of the run of the season. There were some things that were required to continue the season, but that's about all I could say for this one.
Great stuff. So you're a Burger King man through and through. John, do you defend this episode of Loki Breaking Brad?
I do defend this episode of Loki. I'd give it 3 key limes out of 5. I think for me, I really like the hub of this episode. As I said, I don't want to be overly negative, but I flip-flop between kind of thinking this was good and then not being quite so fussed with it in the end. And I think I enjoyed actually the character scenes in this between Mobius, Loki, and Brad. I really enjoyed those all the way through. And I did like the first moments of Sylvie and Loki. And I thought there was some really good music in this. I think for me, it just felt like some of the extraneous stuff needed to be brought out a bit more to the fore, whether it was Dox's plan, whether it was just the situation in the TVA, these 2 factions, and less of the McDonald's. I mean, it's not that I'm against product placement, but this seems to be like slap bang in the middle, McLoki product placement. And I think certainly there's things in those scenes where I would have wanted a bit more of Loki and Sylvie having those conversations. I don't need to know about the lovely McDonald's meal. It's great after a hangover. So
I think if we mention them one more time, we're going to need to be sponsored by them.
That is true. Yeah. And, all publicity is good publicity, whatever it might be. So, so I did enjoy this. I felt as well, I love the Obi and Casey stuff, but again, I think there just needs to be a little bit more here. But again, it might come in the next episode, and I might be proved wrong in that. And I hope so, because I did enjoy this episode. It just didn't grab me, if you know what I mean. I'd give it 3 key limes out of 5. Christopher, do you defend episode 2 of Loki Breaking Brad?
I do. I'm very much like you. I'm like kind of halfway point. It wasn't the greatest episode. There was things to like. There was things to dislike. Is too strong of a word, but just things I just did not get. I don't understand the choices. I'm not going to go through the points again that we've already kind of discussed. So I think very much for me, it's kind of like, I'm interested to see as we go into episode 3, where they go with this. Will this show get better each and every episode? Or is kind of, have we lost the highs of season 1? I don't think we're there yet. I think we're going to be, I think this is a speed bump. We'll call it that. Or a pothole, depending on. We're either going up or we're going down. Either way, it was not the smooth sailing that I think everyone expects with a Tom Hiddleston venture.
It was certainly a pothole after episode 1. Really enjoyed episode 1. Was ready for a good adventure. And I think, hopefully it'll sort itself out in the next episode.
It will. And we'll be back on to our journey into mystery.
Excellent.
There we are. Gentlemen, I think it's about time we go and listen to what some of our fellow defenders have to say about this episode with their feedback. We'll kick it off with an email from the one and only, yes, Victor Timely Von Doom. Ooh, I like it.
Excellent.
Timely. It's a good moniker.
Absolutely.
Victor, this to say, greetings, fellow variants. I love the OB and Casey Geekhead scene. Tom and Owen's scenes together are golden. Loved Loki reminding us who he really is. X5 never stood a chance against him, and talking about his mother was a big no-no. Was that overgrown Hoover Loki used on X5? Hilarious. Love OB's mantra. RTFM. Read the effing manual. The Loki Sylvie reunion was somewhat anticlimactic. Yes to Janis Joplin. Looking forward to the podcast feedback and episode 3. Excelsior. Victor Timely Von Doom.
Fantastic, Victor. Yes, the closing music in the episode was Cosmic Blues by Janis Joplin.
Excellent stuff.
Yeah. Great tune.
I thought you were going for like Sylvie's haircut.
No.
Okay.
Firmly based in the 80s mullet style.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it should be firmly put back there. And anyone who wears a mullet right now should be pruned from the timeline. Excellent. Good to know.
Although I feel like if she turned around, the mullet would actually just be a big M in the back of her head.
Da, 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 da. We're not talking about this anymore. Thanks, Victor. It was great to hear from you.
Yeah, good stuff, Victor. I totally agree. I think Loki and Sylvie could have had a bit more of a reunion in somewhere in 1982, I guess. And Tom and Owen scenes, and for me, along with X5, really, really good together. I think they really do marry up nicely. And I really enjoyed that about this episode. So great stuff. Thanks, Victor.
Absolutely. Thanks, Victor. We also got an email in from Coffee and Vodka who says, greetings, fellow massacred en masse defenders. Wow, this had me smiling from ear to ear until actually panicking for the timelines. In short, this episode played me like a fiddle. So well plotted with dialogue that charmed and such mesmerizing chemistry. X5 Brad meshed and clashed with Mobius and Loki like a pro, immediately distinguishing himself as a major player, much like Obi. And that initial chase, again, wow. Just when you thought we'd never again see our old Loki with all his magic and menace, as he himself said, spot on. Speaking of menace, General Dox turning it up to an instantaneous 11 with her massive Nazi-esque lightning strike, obliterating timelines and countless lives. Sylvie's not quite return felt natural. She'd finally found her peace and was pissed to have it threatened. All of it gave off such Phase 1 feelings and thrills. Even the episode title was epic. They had some serious fun with this one. Standing ovation from me. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. 5 unfair fights.
Wow.
Decimated dimensions.
Wow.
And OB autographs out of 5. Peace and take care. Coffee and vodka.
Good stuff, Coffee and Vodka.
Really glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Really glad you enjoyed it. And to be honest, you pulled out a lot of what I enjoyed as well, whether it is seeing Loki returning with his magic and menace, and the X5, Mobius and Loki sort of scenes. I thought they were really, really good. I think I just probably wasn't played but like a fiddle just as much as you were, say. So but yeah, no, good stuff. And yeah, interesting you say about the Phase 1 feelings. I think I can see what you mean by that for sure.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't played like a fiddle. Well, I was played like a fiddle, but I'm actually a set of drums. So that's kind of why it was slightly off. But thanks for the feedback, Coffee and Vodka. And again, this is why we love it. You do kind of, you bring up something quite interesting again, with even say the Nazi-esque lightning strike. Just didn't think about that.
Yeah, she really was going all blitzkrieg on the timeline. It was General Dox.
Absolutely. And you're totally right as well. Brad really stands out as a great character in this season, and I'm hoping to see more of him in the future episodes, because his battling back and forth with Loki in B-15 and Mobius, and then just that one-on-one with Loki, I thought were fantastic scenes. Really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Thanks, Victor. Over on our Facebook group, Dr. Bob Phillips says, Casey really stepped up in this episode, and it's overdue recognition. Wasn't it lovely to see him get all excited when he met the scribe of his book of life? The call out of the squishy cube interrogation technique being torture was interesting, as we've seen similar done frequently without any mention of its unsettling truth. Might have been even better if it had led to a completely blind alley, which I think sits more firmly with how useful the approaches are. And I think the show is a redemption arc for Loki. But mischief gods never quite settle on good or evil for too long, do they? Yeah, thanks, Dr. Bob. I think Casey, having his sort of autograph moment, or trying to get his autograph. But I think Hunter B-15 successfully pruned that geek out and the autograph in his book by effectively telling him to stop, because there's other pressing matters to attend to. I think you raised an interesting thing. Maybe the interrogation shouldn't have been as successful as it was.
Torture doesn't usually provide a real answer.
I guess he was just going to be kind of, a birthday surprise out of the box. Hi, happy birthday.
Here's your answer. Good stuff. Thanks, Dr. Bob, for your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Bob. Also on Facebook, Heather Wallace says, if ever a concept demonstrated the differences in branching timelines, it's that a McDonald's apple pie ever tasted good.
I love it.
Excellent stuff. Although I think I do disagree at some point. Once the burns had subsided. Not in this reality, that's for sure, continues Heather. Is Sylvie sporting a mullet? That alone is justification to prune her branch. Didn't spot any Loki hair flips this episode. Excellent stuff. Yes. Branch pruning for all mullet timelines, I think.
Thank you, Heather. You and I are going to get on well together. It is death to the mullets timelines, and I'm personally saying like that those apple pies were good. So we're remembering differently, but I'm maybe it was Irish versus American McDonald's. Who knows?
I'm with you, Heather. I'll take another apple pie over the McDonald's one any day of the week.
It was the pure fakeness of it, though.
That's why it's terrible. And your mom made great apple pies, John.
I love a normal apple pie as well, but there was just something like so wrong, so right.
Oh my god! If we say apple pie one more time,
well, at least we've stopped saying the M word.
Yeah. The next piece of feedback comes from Joe Herbers, who had this to say: "Great actors in this show. Fun seeing our duo again and the others. Overall, I didn't like this episode as much as the first. The pacing felt off. The multiple interrogation scenes of X5 were too long, which detracted from the urgency of the overall episode. I have a question. In order for X5 to live the Brad life on the sacred timeline, wouldn't something have to happen to the original Brad there so that X5 could step into the celebrity life? Did he kill him? Near the end of the episode, is there a reason they couldn't show up a bit sooner to stop the rogue TVA? I'm not sure how the whole timey-wimey stuff works here. Thanks, Joe. Well, yeah, probably. Like, let's say, like, X5 probably did kill Brad on the Sacred.
No.
I don't know which. Where he became Brad.
Yeah.
No, Brad Wolfe is Brad Wolfe. That is what X5 took on. We don't know how long he's been there, so he could have been establishing his career as Brad Wolfe for a while. Yeah.
Or he's Brad Wolfe's son, because much like Kingo, he doesn't age.
But effectively, what we have heard from this, and this was really good speculation after the first episode of the show, the newly introduced time loom that happens is it knits the timeline back together when something unusual happens. Yeah. So it's knitting it into one sacred timeline. And interestingly, this was used to explain how Captain America Steve Rogers went back and lived a life with Agent Carter back in the 50s after the end of Endgame. He went back the timeline knitted itself back together into one sacred timeline.
I am going to have to get my old knitting patterns out, because this is getting way too knitty for me.
Well, yeah. So that's basically it. So Brad may have appeared at some point, set up his career, and then the timeline knitted him back into the timeline. Doesn't necessarily have to kill a variant of himself. But
it would be cool if he did.
Yeah, but ultimately he did kill him.
I feel like that's probably not the way Marvel Disney will go with it. That he killed,
maybe not,
and stuffed him in a dumpster, and it was all fine. Nobody noticed as he went on.
Yeah, and the timey-wimey stuff, I think that's an important thing as well, because yes, I kind of felt that they could move through those portals to different points in time through the TemPad. So technically, yeah, I think you may be right. They could have just gone earlier, but then we would have had no action scene.
Well, true. But there is something, though. They did say that the TVA sits out of time. So technically, that moment in season 1 where we have Loki slipping through to the past and slipping forward to the future, that shouldn't be able to happen at all within the TVA. That's why they had the whole process of pulling him from all the timelines and creating Loki there as just one version. So technically, they're not using time travel within the TVA because there is no time there. That makes sense?
But they're also outside of the time on the sacred timeline. So I think timey-wimey is slightly broken.
But TVA aren't on any timeline. They're not on the sacred timeline or a branch timeline or anything like that. They're just exist.
So it depends where Docs maybe is conducting her attack on the branches.
Yeah. So maybe they could jump into the branches before they blow up the branches to stop what happens there, but they can't jump in and out of time on the TVA, I think, is the way it would work. Yeah.
It was probably explained and we missed it, but,
it might be.
Or it wasn't and we just assumed.
Yeah, because certainly where Docs is, it certainly wasn't in the TVA. It didn't look like it.
Oh, okay.
It looked quite, like it had rafters and wooden beams. It looked almost, like, dare I say it, you could say it's a Norse hall.
Well, there you go. If it wasn't in the TVA, then absolutely they should have just jumped to the point where she started the operation and could have just wiped it out. Good stuff. Yeah, another little plot hole for episode 2.
Thanks, Joe.
It's a bit Swiss cheesy, like the old Swiss cheese that used to be on M burgers back in the 80s. Good stuff. Thanks once again for all your feedback. You can continue to email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with any thoughts you have on Loki. You can also join us over in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. We'll be back with Loki next week, but we are also covering The Boys spin-off Gen V. We're on to episode 6 this week on Prime Video. 6 of 8, only a couple more episodes left to go. And it has been, while very different to the other shows that we're covering, a fantastic show.
Yes, been really good.
Really good.
It's been one of the best shows this year. Thank you so much for listening. And if you're just joining us for Loki, we will be back next week with episode 3 and our discussions. Fingers crossed there is no corporate sponsorship, or maybe we will get that elusive blockbuster sponsorship that I needed so much back in the day.
No, they had that back in Captain Marvel, Chris.
In the Marvels, they're going to have like a Coca-Cola space shuttle or something.
I'm sure.
All right, guys, thank you so much, and we'll speak to you again next week.
Yes, thank you so much, fellow Defenders, for listening. As always, great to chat all things Loki. Until next time, though, keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending it.
Oh God!
Nice. Very
terrible.
nice.
I can't even edit that out. Bye.
Because that was perfect. Bye.
Bye.